Hello, friends. Today we are going to be talking about the social hierarchy of ancient Egypt. Follow along with me as we read the directions. Read the text and descriptions below. Then fill out where you think the different professions belong in the social hierarchy pyramid. Every Egyptian had a place in society. The pharaoh and his family were at the very top. The upper class lived in cities and on large estates along the Nile. Servants waited on them. The middle class ran businesses or made goods. They lived in smaller homes. Egypt's lower class was its largest class. Most farmers lived in one-room mud homes. Unskilled workers lived in small homes with dirt floors. And we can tell my wonderful human beings that I did not write this. I took it from this website, nsms 6th grade social studies.weebly.com/ancient Egypt. And we can tell because I have my citation and I have my quotation marks. Remember, we are always going to be using quotation marks and a citation anytime we quote directly from the text. So this gives me a little bit of background. I can see from this social hierarchy pyramid that there was one ruler. For this activity, we're going to talk about three professions from the upper class, three professions from the middle class, and three professions from the lower class. Now let's go ahead and read these professions. Artisans were skilled craft workers who created goods by hand. So they were people like carpenters or jewelers or leather workers or painters or sculptors. Other people are in there as well. That's all we had space for. Enslaved people were human beings that were made to be slaves. Farmers planted and cultivated food and livestock for people to eat. Generals were leaders of the Egyptian army. Merchants were people who traded goods like gold, papyrus, and cloth to other countries. Nobles were usually people who were related to the pharaoh and other upper class citizens. They would supervise the land worked by the peasants. The pharaoh was the religious and political leader of ancient Egypt. Priests, people who were the middlemen between the people and the Egyptian gods. Shopkeepers, people who sold the goods brought into the country by merchants. And unskilled workers, peasants who labored in large groups to accomplish large projects, normally for the government. So here is our here is our information, and these 10 professions need to be placed into our social hierarchy. So let's start at the top. There was one ruler and one ruler only. According to this information here, who was the one ruler? The pharaoh. Go ahead and write that in. So right here, you are going to write pharaoh. Now, normally we would go in order, but let's make our lives a little bit easier. And instead, we're going to do top, bottom, and then we can fill in the middle. So who is at the bottom of the social hierarchy? Let's go back to the text. Egypt's lower class was its largest class. Most farmers lived in one-room mud homes. So if we're talking about Egypt's lower class, and then it says farmers, then who do we know is going to be in that lower class? So go ahead and write farmers. Unskilled workers lived in small homes with dirt floors. So who do we know is also in that lower class? Good job. I'm highlighting the ones that we've already put up there. That's a good call. I'm going to put them in different colors. Be right back. So we've got them color coded. The top of the social hierarchy is going to be yellow, upper class will be light blue, middle class will be purple, and lower class will be red. So we have our ruler, is the pharaoh. We have the lower class, which is the farmers and the unskilled workers. But wait a minute, it says there are 3 groups in the lower class. Let's go see. Do you think in the lower class it was shopkeepers or priests or nobles or merchants or generals or enslaved people or artisans? That's a good call. We're going to say enslaved people were part of the lower class. So in the lower class, we have enslaved people, farmers, and unskilled workers. Now, we need to figure out where artisans and merchants and generals and nobles and priests and shopkeepers go. Are they upper class or middle class? I don't remember. Let's go back to the text. The upper class lived in cities and in large estates along the Nile. Does that tell us anything about who they were? Which group they were? Not really. Servants waited on them. Does that tell us who the upper class was? Not really. So let's keep reading. The middle class ran businesses or made goods. They lived in smaller homes. That helps us. The middle class ran businesses or made goods. Okay, so who of these people would have ran businesses? Artisans. Artisans literally says created goods. They created goods by hand. So artisans were part of the middle class. Okay, ran businesses or made goods. Generals were leaders of the army, so it's not them. Merchants were people who traded goods, like gold, papyrus, and cloth to other countries. Could that be considered a business? Trading from one place to another? Definitely. So our merchants were also in the middle class. Nobles, usually people related to the pharaoh and other upper class citizens, they would supervise the land worked by the peasants. That doesn't really seem like they are running a business, nor does it seem like they're making goods. Priests, people who were the middlemen between people and the Egyptian gods. It's not a business. They're not making anything. And shopkeepers, people who sold the goods brought into the country by merchants. There we go. That's a business. They sold the goods that were brought from the merchants. So in our middle class, we have artisans, merchants, and shopkeepers. Okay, how about the upper class? The upper class we know is 3 different groups, and hey look, we have just 3 groups left. So the upper class was generals and nobles and priests. Now we have the question, are there any similarities between the ancient Egyptian social hierarchy and our society in 2021 America? And then explain your answer. Friends, I'm going to tell you right now, yes, there are similarities. Tell me at least 2. And remember, you are in middle school, so as always, you are answering in complete sentences. Thank you. Then on the back of your paper, you're going to read the text below, then write a clear claim, provide evidence to support the claim, and add relevant reasoning. Do you get the hint that writing claims and reasoning is important? All right. Follow along with me as we read this. Ancient Egyptians followed what is called a patriarchal society. This means that men usually controlled most family things. In ancient Egypt, the father headed the family and was in charge of all of the important decisions. Women had the right to own property, buy and sell goods, and get divorced. However, women could not have important positions in government, even though there sometimes were women rulers and even women pharaohs. It happened. It was not common, but it happened. Few Egyptians sent their children to school. It was reserved for wealthier families. Boys learned job skills from their fathers. Mothers taught their daughters to run a household. Though there is some evidence that occasionally girls did go to school and even became doctors. Boys usually started school at the age of 7, and they were taught to read and write as well as mathematics. So my question for you, my wonderful human beings, who had the most power? There's a couple different ways you can answer this. You can answer which gender had the most power. You could answer which class had the most power. You could answer which person had the most power. The thing is, as always, when you are writing a claim, I need you to be very solid and very clear. Then, a little bit different from the last couple times we've worked with claims, now we're providing evidence. Remember, your evidence is a direct quote from the text to support your claim. Be sure to include your quotation marks and your citation. And then your reasoning. Your reasoning, as you know by now, is where you make an inference and explain how the evidence supports your claim. I'm going to give you some sentence stems if we need them. Okay, they will be up around the room. My wonderful human beings, as always, if you need help, please do not hesitate to ask. So just a quick reminder, you are filling in the social pyramid, you are answering this question in complete sentences, and then you are providing your claim, evidence, and reasoning to answer the question, who had the most power? As always, be good people, make good choices. Go Vikings.